Let me tell you something unusual about silence in the digital age. Today, everything is broadcasted, from our smiles to our sorrows, from coffee mugs to heartbreaks, all edited, filtered, and shared with the world. We live in an age where silence feels suspicious, where privacy feels like a secret, where if you don't post it, people wonder, did it even happen? We've been taught to document everything: our meals, our milestones, our emotions, our vacations. We show proof of our joy, our pain, our progress, because we've built a world that measures life by visibility. But quietly, beneath the noise, there are people who live differently. They're not hiding, not ashamed, not disconnected, but simply private. They live fully, laugh deeply, succeed quietly, and share almost nothing about it online. That person could be anyone. It could be you, your coworker, your neighbor, your old classmate. They might scroll, but rarely post. They might watch, but never announce. And yet they're not lonely. They're not missing out. They're just choosing peace over publicity. So, who are these people? And what does it say about them, about us? That in a world where almost everyone is desperate to be seen, they're comfortable staying unseen? Let's talk about the hidden psychology of people who keep their life off social media. In a culture that constantly shouts, choosing silence is a kind of rebellion. When everyone else is broadcasting, curating, editing, performing, the decision to not do that is deeply intentional. You see, social media runs on a psychological loop of validation and visibility. It taps into the human need to be recognized, admired, and affirmed. Every like and comment releases tiny doses of dopamine, the same chemical that lights up when we feel loved or rewarded. It feels good to be seen. It feels safe to belong. But some people, consciously or not, start to notice the cost. They notice that the more they post, the more they compare. The more they share, the more they curate. And the more they curate, the less authentic they feel. So they step back, not because they have nothing to say, but because they want to live without constantly explaining themselves. They're not chasing applause anymore. They're chasing peace. Psychologists call this self-boundary regulation, the ability to decide what parts of yourself are shared and what parts stay sacred. In simple terms, it's emotional self-protection. We all have a need for connection, yes, but we also have a deep need for safety. And in a digital world where your thoughts can be screenshotted, judged, or misunderstood in seconds, privacy becomes a form of emotional armor. People who keep their lives offline often understand this instinctively. They don't see the world as an audience. They see it as a space that doesn't always deserve front row seats to their private moments. For them, love doesn't need an audience. Happiness doesn't need proof. And success doesn't need validation. Their life is lived for them, not for the timeline. Here's something interesting. Keeping your life off social media can actually reflect a strong sense of self. Because when you're constantly online, your identity can start to fragment. You become one version of yourself for your followers, another for your friends, and another for your real self when you're alone. The gap between those identities can create a quiet kind of anxiety, a feeling that you're never quite authentic anywhere. But those who choose privacy live differently. They're not performing. They don't feel the need to announce every thought, every win, every trip. Their self-worth isn't tied to how others perceive them. They draw their confidence not from being seen, but from being certain. They don't ask, do they like me? They ask, do I like who I am? And that subtle shift changes everything. To understand why some people choose quiet, we have to talk about the emotional fatigue of social media. Think about it. Scrolling through social platforms is like walking through a hall of mirrors. Every reflection shows someone's highlight reel, someone's filtered joy, someone's best angle, someone's biggest win. It's not fake, it's just incomplete. But our brains don't see it that way. We compare our behind the scenes to everyone else's edited version. And slowly, without realizing it, we start to feel less than. We think we're behind in life, even though we're only seeing 1% of someone else's reality. Some people grow aware of this trap early on. They realize that constant exposure to other people's lives distorts their own. So they decide to limit it, not out of arrogance, but self-preservation. They stop playing the comparison game by stepping off the field entirely. They stop documenting every moment so they can actually experience it. They trade applause for presence, and once they taste that peace, it's hard to go back. There's another layer to this control. In psychology, control is closely linked to safety. When people feel that their environment is unpredictable or invasive, they try to regain control in small ways. For some, this means keeping their personal life private, because in an online world that thrives on oversharing, privacy becomes a form of power. When you don't post, people can't assume. They can't judge your relationships, your choices, your emotions. They only know what you choose to reveal, and that gives you freedom. It's not about secrecy, it's about sovereignty. They choose to own their story instead of handing it to the crowd. For some, privacy isn't just a preference, it's protection from misinterpretation. Online, context gets lost easily. A photo, a sentence, or even a silence can be twisted into something it's not. So many people keep their lives offline because they've learned the pain of being misunderstood. They've seen how quickly opinions form, how strangers feel entitled to personal details. They'd rather be mysterious than misjudged. This is especially common among people who value depth over attention. They don't crave being known by everyone. They crave being understood by a few. And they know that real understanding doesn't happen through pixels and captions, it happens through presence and patience. Another psychological layer behind this behavior is what researchers call selective self-disclosure. It means being intentional about who you share with. Instead of sharing everything with everyone, you share specific things with specific people, those who have earned access to your inner world. This builds authentic intimacy, not digital intimacy. Think about it. When you share something online, it's exposed to hundreds or thousands of people. But when you share something privately, it's received. It's held. It's respected. People who keep their life off social media understand this difference. They don't measure connection by visibility, but by reciprocity. They'd rather have a real conversation with one trusted friend than 1,000 empty hearts on a post. Keeping your life private isn't about rejection of technology, it's about reclaiming focus. Social media has rewired our attention spans. Every scroll, every notification, every ping pulls us away from the present moment. It fragments our thoughts into smaller and smaller pieces until peace itself feels foreign. But people who choose privacy are often making a conscious return to mindful living. They want to feel grounded. They want to protect their energy from the noise of constant updates. They'd rather be fully in one life than partially in hundreds. This doesn't mean they're antisocial. They might still enjoy social media, but they use it intentionally. They decide when to engage and when to step back. They live by a simple rule. Just because it happened doesn't mean I have to post it. On a deeper level, privacy is often connected to attachment style. People who grew up in environments where their boundaries were disrespected, where every move was criticized or controlled, may grow up craving autonomy. For them, keeping life private isn't about hiding, it's about healing. It's about reclaiming control over their narrative after years of feeling exposed. Conversely, people with secure attachment, those who feel safe in their relationships, often don't need constant online affirmation. Their sense of connection comes from within, not from views or likes. So, privacy can be a sign of emotional maturity. It says, I don't need to prove my life to feel real in it. Now, let's address something real. Some people assume that private people must be lonely or disconnected, but often, the opposite is true. Privacy doesn't isolate, it deepens connection. Because when you're not performing for an audience, you're free to be fully present with the people who matter. You laugh without needing to capture it. You cry without needing to explain it. You grow without needing to announce it. Your relationships become less about perception and more about presence. And that's a kind of intimacy social media rarely gives. There's another layer to this quiet behavior, one that often hides beneath the surface. People who keep their lives off social media aren't always running from attention. Sometimes they're running from misunderstanding. Because the truth is, it hurts to be seen and misinterpreted. Maybe they once shared something personal, something raw, and watched as strangers twisted it into something ugly. Maybe they opened up about a hard time, and instead of empathy, they got silence, or pity, or worse, they got judgment disguised as curiosity. So they stopped. They learned that silence is safer than exposure, that it's better to be unknown than to be misunderstood. Psychologists call this self-protective withdrawal. It's a coping mechanism, a quiet rebellion against a world that doesn't listen carefully. It's what happens when you've been seen in all the wrong ways, and you decide you'd rather disappear than risk it again. But here's the interesting part. While the world interprets their silence as aloofness, what they're really practicing is emotional self-preservation. They're not cold, they're cautious. Not arrogant, just exhausted from being misread. And maybe they've realized that peace is worth more than being perceived. Let's talk about privacy for a moment. In today's culture, privacy almost feels rebellious. When everything from your breakfast to your heartbreak is expected to be shared, choosing silence feels almost strange, almost wrong. But for those who live privately, it's not about hiding. It's about choosing what deserves to be sacred. Some people don't want their memories to become content. They want to live the moment, not document it. They want their relationships to grow quietly, without the pressure of public validation. They want their success to be personal, not a performance. In psychology, this can be linked to what's called intrinsic motivation, when a person does something for inner satisfaction, not for external rewards or recognition. They aren't seeking likes or followers. They're seeking meaning. And in a world where everything is measured by visibility, that's a kind of freedom most people don't even realize they've lost. When your self-worth isn't tied to online applause, you become harder to manipulate, harder to impress, harder to break. You start living for yourself again. There's something deeply poetic about people who know how to disappear. Not in a dramatic way, but in a peaceful, deliberate one. They move through life quietly, savoring experiences that no one else will ever see. Their happiness doesn't need witnesses. Some might think that's sad, but maybe it's beautiful, because they've found something many of us are still searching for: the ability to exist without the need for an audience. They've mastered what I'd call the art of quiet existence. You won't see them post about their trip, but they'll remember the smell of the rain that day. They won't record the dinner, but they'll remember the laughter that filled the room. They won't upload their relationships, but they'll protect them like treasure. In psychological terms, this reflects high internal locus of control. It means their sense of fulfillment comes from within, not from what others say or think. They've learned that peace doesn't need proof, and joy doesn't need validation. We live in the age of noise. Everyone is talking, posting, sharing, proving. Every thought has to be published. Every achievement has to be announced. Every moment has to be captured. It's exhausting and invisible to most. We scroll through highlight reels of other people's lives, comparing our behind the scenes to their best angles. We start feeling inadequate even when nothing is wrong, because social media is built to make us forget one crucial truth. Real life is quiet. Real life is sitting on a balcony at 11 p.m., thinking about how far you've come. It's cooking dinner with music playing in the background. It's laughing with someone you love without taking a single photo. That's where the meaning lives, not in the post, but in the moment. And people who keep their lives off social media, they know that. They've seen what happens when life becomes performance, and they've chosen to opt out. Another reason people stay private online is control. Social media gives the illusion of control. You choose what to show, when to show it, and how. But the moment you post, that control disappears. People interpret, they judge, they assume, they twist. And for those who've experienced loss of control in their lives, whether through trauma, public embarrassment, or betrayal, keeping their life offline is a form of taking power back. It's about deciding who gets access to their world. It's about setting boundaries in a boundaryless culture. In psychology, this connects to self-determination theory. Humans have three basic psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Keeping your life private fulfills the first autonomy, the right to be the author of your own narrative. To them, silence isn't emptiness. It's authorship, it's control, it's peace. Ironically, people who stay off social media often crave connection, but a different kind of connection. They're not antisocial, they're anti-superficial. They don't want 10,000 followers, they want 2 real friends. They don't want likes, they want understanding. In psychological terms, they're drawn toward deep relational intimacy, connection rooted in shared experiences, empathy, and presence. They know that you can be surrounded by attention and still feel completely unseen, that you can be known by everyone and understood by no one. And so, they withdraw from the crowd, hoping to find something quieter but truer. They choose depth over visibility. They choose connection over exposure. They choose real over loud. For some, staying off social media isn't a statement, it's a safeguard. They know how easy it is to lose yourself online. You start sharing small things, then bigger things, and before you know it, your identity becomes a brand. Your value becomes measured in engagement. You start curating your life instead of living it, and slowly, you forget what's real. There's a psychological concept called self-concept fragmentation. It's when your sense of self becomes divided between your real identity and your digital persona. The more time you spend performing, the less you recognize yourself in silence. People who keep their lives private are protecting something fragile, their wholeness. They've seen what happens when people turn into profiles. They've seen how quickly authenticity gets traded for attention, and they want no part of it. There's also something almost spiritual about choosing privacy. It's not just psychological, it's soulful. Because silence is where we hear ourselves again. It's where we reconnect with what matters, where the noise of the world fades and the voice within grows clear. Those who live off social media often experience life more directly. They're not looking at sunsets through screens, they're feeling them. They're not performing their lives, they're living them. And maybe that's the greatest luxury left in the modern world, to be fully present, fully real, and fully alive, without the need to broadcast it. But let's be honest, living privately isn't always easy. In a culture built on visibility, being unseen can make you feel invisible. When everyone else is shouting, your whisper can get lost. You might feel disconnected, left behind, forgotten. And yet, maybe that's okay, because being invisible to the world sometimes allows you to be visible to yourself. The truth is, everything meaningful happens in silence. First, growth, healing, love, creation. Even a seed grows in the dark before it reaches the light. So maybe those who stay off social media aren't behind. Maybe they're just growing where no one can see. If you're watching this, and you're someone who doesn't share much online, I want you to know this. You are not strange. You are not outdated. You are not missing out. You are simply choosing peace in a world that profits from your restlessness. You are choosing presence in a world addicted to distraction. You are choosing to live your life instead of performing it. And if you're someone who's always online, maybe this is your gentle reminder to pause, to look up, to live a few moments that no one else will ever see.